A very reasonably priced USB digital microscope can be easily purchased online or from your local electrical hobbyist outlet. You've purchased your USB microscope and here it is. Now the first thing that you'll find is that it comes with a small CD, and you use that to install a small piece of software onto your laptop or desktop, which will enable you to capture and then to manipulate the images. So we'll put that carefully to one side first of all. Now we're unpacking the microscope and putting the packaging to one side, and here is our USB digital microscope. It's on a little stand here, and here is the cable with the USB connection. On the front of the microscope, let's just tighten this up, on the front of the microscope is a little control which actually will focus the image. On the top here is a little button which will enable you to take an image if you want to, and then at the top here also is a little tiny wheel which will enable you to adjust the lighting from the LEDs. Now the first thing that I notice is that it's not particularly stable. So first thing that I've done is to prepare a wooden block with a piece of double-sided tape, and I stick the microscope actually onto the wooden block, and I find that that immediately makes a big difference to the stability of the microscope. Now you need a nice work surface, and I found that a good way of doing that to protect the table or wherever you're working is to have a look in your local budget store, and here I found a nice white chopping board, no great cost, and this is a nice work surface now that we've got that we can actually do our things on. Now by having a block like that, obviously our microscope is now some way up in the air, and we need to make a little stage onto which to see things. So what I've done with that is a piece of acrylic sheet and some little wooden blocks and a hot glue gun, and what I've now got is a little stage which the microscope can focus down on. It's nice and stable because of the wooden block, and here's a little stage. Now the microscope provides light from the top, but it's often very useful to have light coming up from underneath. So once again, hunting around in our local budget store, and I found a little light, and here's that little light that I found. Now this little light has got a switch on it, and you can have a nice bright light. Now that will go underneath there like that, but what we will need to put in place is a piece of white paper underneath there to spread the light out a little bit. Now something else which is very useful is it's often quite difficult to hold things properly underneath the microscope, and so what I'm using for that is one of these helping hands arrangements. Now these are obtainable from hobby shops, and they're used for people doing craft work, but they're very, very useful to us for holding specimens. So this piece of twig, and I can hold that piece of twig and put it down so as it can be held underneath the microscope in virtually any position, and then I can focus on it. Now the other thing is that it's very, very important that when we're doing our work that we make a proper record, and so to do that yet another helping hands, and this time I've attached a little piece of ruler to the front of the helping hands. And so what we can do now is when we're looking at our objects under the microscope, we can put that into the field of view, and what we've got now is a proper size scale. And finally, because we might not always want to use this top light, sometimes you get reflections and that sort of thing from it, once again going back to the budget store, I found that these lights are easily available, cost about £5 each, and you can put 2 of these and they will give you some good supplementary lighting, like this. There we are. So here is our complete setup, and now we'll see what we can actually look at using our USB microscope. Now let's have a look at a piece of fern leaf from the garden. And here's a piece of fern leaf ready for inspection on our white chopping board. First of all, using top light, we click on capture and a small thumbnail appears on the right hand side. Now in looking at the underside of the leaf, we can see the little umbrella shaped structures that protected the spores. Now using the ruler, we can add a dimension to what we're looking at. Now using transmitted light from underneath, see the veins of the leaf and the little filaments that held the spores in place. Now once we've captured our thumbnails, we can then start to process the images. So to add a text box, we first of all select the colour font and then insert a text box. And in that text box we can first of all put a label which identifies what we were looking at. Where it comes from, and the date. We've made a proper scientific record of our observations. Now we know how to use the microscope, let's use it to have a look at some other Stork Valley wildlife.